Alright, so check this out. I got this camera online. It's a high def 1080 whatever, because I have some critics on my film quality, the biggest one being my brother. So he said, this is the one I use, do this, people like it. So let's give it a shot. And that's the camera I was using. I don't know if I'll ever use it again. So here we go.
What's that fit like?
Record Nick in high definition. And then Clark. Clark, smile for the camera. Come on. That works pretty good. Smile for the camera, Clark.
What?
At least give me the finger or something.
You're not worth it.
Man, look how gripey.
It's not worth it.
I'm not worth it.
I ain't worth looking for it.
Camera is panning too fast. Come on.
So now you're gonna have to.
Yeah. All right, this one is a, what year is this? GMC Sonoma 2.2. Has a misfire. I got to do an emission test. So we'll do a couple things, see where that leads. This is nice, man. It's got a 2002. What stinks about this is after I ran my emission test, I have the P0410 code, which is an air pump code. So the Misfire, if any of you guys are familiar with waivers and stuff with emissions, I have to address the cause of failure. And unfortunately on this one, it's an air pump code, so I'm going to have to address the air pump to get an emission sticker. And the customer also wants the Misfire looked at, so this will be a twofold case study, if you will. Okay, so from a Misfire standpoint, I took the part of the air induction box off so I could get to the spark plug wires, and I have a secondary, just a single cylinder secondary ignition clamp, and I went to, I could show you where it's at if you want. I went to, on my lab scope, there's just an ignition scope, and I just went to single cylinder ignition. So we'll see what kind of readings we get. So it's running and it's missing. And if you look, if I go to, I'm on cylinder number 1. Now if I go and move my scale, because some of these, they fire through the one plug and then come back through the other, so you're going to have to adjust your scale to see, and then adjust your cursor. You can see where my number 1 is pretty bad. Every once in a while I'll get a high kV spike, real high actually. Pick that up, I'm getting, the coil's able to put out some voltage. It's all 15, 16 kV here and there in spikes. So if I go to the companion cylinder, which is number 4, of course it's not going to read on this scale. I'm going to have to now lower my scale and then move my cursor again So I'm seeing it fire this way. You can see I have like maybe 8 kV at the most. So what I'm suspecting is because I can see 16 on the number 1 and that low on number 4, I probably just have wore out spark plugs or wires. You know, I'll probably just do the whole tune-up, but I probably have such a gap that I'm losing my voltage, my kilovoltage for the return back to the coil. So we'll try the same thing on number 2 and 4. Or 2 and 3, sorry. So here's number 3. That's backwards. We'll go to number 2 first. You see number 2, and there's all kind of crap running through there. Same thing, about 8 kilovolts max. You can see my firing line is all distorted, which is down in here. It's not really that smooth. So if I go to number 3 and I move my graph down to the negative side again, then move my cursor, so I pick up, I'm way past 16, so the coil can put it out. There's just a problem in the secondary part, whether it's plugs or wires. So that's where I'll start with the Misfire. I know it's not as technical as it could be, but it's an easy way to check, see how far I want to go to start. So the air pump will be next, and I'll show this one with some new plugs and wires probably. Alright, turn the scanner on. Go to codes. If you look at all of them, the Misfire does show up along with a fuel level sensor code, which is a common GM issue. But if you look on the MAL requested, the one actually turning the check engine light on is only the 410. So from an emission standpoint, I have to address that. So first thing you can do is just go to your functional tests, and I can kind of turn the air pump relay on and see if it even runs. Turn it on, and I'm turning it on and I don't hear anything running, so I'll leave it on and then I'll go down and check for some power. So there's the air pump. There's the front bumper, right kind of below the radiator. It's an electric air pump. And you have pretty much 2 wires going to it, power and a ground. I'm going to check this here and see if I have a bad pump or something on the control side. So there's everybody's favorite test light. I'm going to jam it up in my wires and I'm going to control the air pump. Right now the relay's off. This I don't have a patent for yet, but there's the snap-on old Solus holder, which is Nick. So what I'll do is I'll turn it on. I hear a relay clicking. I don't know if you can hear that. Probably not with my finger in the way. We'll just try that again. There's a relay clicking, so as I turn it on and off, we'll leave it on. I'll back probe that, we'll see what we got. Alright, I have my test light back probing the red wire, which is the power feed, and it's glowing green, which means I have a circuit complete to ground, but I'm not getting power to the pump. So it's still on. Even if I turn it on and off, it doesn't change. So now I'm gonna check for the power supply side. So here's the wiring diagram. You have the secondary air. It's got its own separate fuse box and relay. So there's a 30 amp fuse for the air pump going to the relay, and then there's a 10 amp for there's a vacuum solenoid under there that kind of diverts it. So since it's not running, I'm gonna go for the 30 amp side or the relay side, and since I hear it clicking, that engine 1 fuse is probably good. So I'll go to that thing. It is down, here's the battery right there, and down beside the battery I've disconnected the horn so we can see down in there, and there is a cover and there's a relay. So let's see what I can dig up down there. Alright, I took that cover off, and you can see a 30 amp fuse and a 10 amp fuse, and if I energize it, you can hear it, the relay's clicking, so that works on the control end. And if I take my test light and I touch the ends of the fuse, it's going to be hard to do here. See, I got power on one end and nothing on the other. So I have power on one end, nothing on the other. That fuse is bad. There's a good chance there's probably water or something in the pump drawing too many amps, but I'll pull that out and build something to see if the pump will run. Alright, pulled the fuse out. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but down in the center between the, it's fuzzy, between the two terminals, it's blown. Whatever. But what we did is we made a jumper wire setup, and I got a 30 amp circuit breaker, so we're going to turn it on, see if we hear the pump run. I turned it on and the pump runs. So it may just be that simple. So what we can do now is I could actually start the car and we can run it, and I can scroll through here when I turn this on, and if you look at my fuel trims, when I fire the air pump, it should make my short-term fuel trim go crazy because it sees the extra air. So we'll see if it works on that end. Alright, I have it running. Right now it's still an open loop, so it's not looking at the fuel trim. So my misfire, of course, is still there. But as soon as it goes into closed loop, I'll turn, there it goes. It goes into closed loop. I'm going to turn on my air pump. And it ran for a second, and I think it stopped. Oh, look. It's pushing water out of the, let me turn that off. That's crazy. That thing's full of water. This is the air tube. I don't know if you caught that, but when I fired it up, it pushed air or water out of that tube. So chances are it was starting to bind up. It threw too many amps and popped that fuse. I'm gonna have to pull that apart and go down underneath and we'll check that. Did you? Alright, I'm gonna pull this apart. There's the little diverter valve. It's vacuum controlled to I'll either dump the fresh air or dump to the exhaust. So if I pull this off, it's probably all full of water. If I can get this off. That's not full. Maybe I pumped it all out. Oh, there's the air pump's full of water.
Full of water again?
Totally full of water. I guess I'll pull it apart and dump it out and see if it works. Yeah. I decided to just leave the hoses off and let the fan pump it all out, and it squirted all the way over to there, and let it run for a little bit. And then I'll put it back together and try to run the test. Alright, since I got it running, I'm not popping my circuit breaker. I put a new 30 amp maxi fuse back in there. This is kind of how the system works. You have the air pump relay, which is back, that black thing to the right of the green fuse. And when that's energized, a leg of that comes over to this vacuum solenoid. And that red wire will get powered up when the relay's turned on. So on the wiring diagram end, you have the secondary air relay. Get a little bit of light here if I can. Not going to be a good spot here. And you have, when the relay energizes, here's my 30 amp fuse. So when the relay energizes, it comes through the 30 amp fuse, it engages to terminal 87, and then it goes over to this junction point. One leg of it goes down to the air pump motor. The other leg goes back up through a 10 amp fuse, which is this one right here to the left of the green maxi fuse. And that 10 amp fuse is the air vacuum solenoid fuse. And they're showing, on this wiring diagram, they're showing the air pump and the vacuum solenoid is the same component. I think I've seen them that way, but mine is this one right here, because I got the two vacuum lines, and if I took them apart, I have vacuum on one, and if I energize the air pump, it energizes this red wire and feeds vacuum down to a little diverter valve, and I'll show you that. Here's the diverter valve right here, and there's the vacuum line going to it. This is a pigtail for the pump. Well, this vacuum line's pretty cracked. I'll probably do something about that, but so when the air pump isn't energized, there's no vacuum here, and this is just a fresh air vent. When the air pump is energized, that solenoid is also energized and sends vacuum down to here, closing this off and pumping it to the exhaust manifold through a check valve. Okay, now what's funny here is, I don't know if you'll see from this picture, but these main air tubes were reversed, and that's why water dumped out of my fresh air intake, because when I originally tried to test it before I started filming, I pulled this line off. I was trying to make it do the test I'll show you here in a second, and it wasn't working. My fuel trims weren't changing, and I pulled this hose off, and it's a suction on this side, and we had the one going out to the exhaust on the suction side, so it was totally backwards. So it was probably drawing moisture from the exhaust and just filled up, and you know, whatever, air pump, this light's probably been on forever, and he didn't care until emissions and then the misfire. So I hooked it all back up the way it should be. The upper one is your outlet with a valve. This lower one is just your fresh air intake. And now I'm going to energize it with a scan tool, and we'll watch it work. Alright, I'm back to my screen that I tried before, and if I go to look what I want to look at, it's going to be down here, make sure it's in closed loop. and I want to turn it on, and you can see I'm back probing the power side of the vacuum solenoid. When I energize it, I hear the pump run, turn it on and off. So all that's working, the fuses are good, the power's there, you hear the pump running. Now if I go over to the screen here, you see my fuel trim still recovering, it's going down. But that's how this system works. It looks for the oxygen sensor to pick up the extra air. Right now running in closed loop, so around 0, which you're happy with. When I energize it, and I send that extra air through the system, you see my short-term fuel trim go way positive. So it sees the air, turn it off, and that is confirmation of the air pump now working correctly. So now I need to either drive it to turn the light off or see if I spent enough money to go the waiver route. So I'm going to call this one diagnosed and fixed on that end, and when I get the plugs and wires in, we'll look at my secondary ignition on the Misfire part, and that'll be it. Alright, I got the tune-up stuff done, got my secondary ignition clamp on there, and if you look at my firing line, my spark line, you remember before my upside down ones on the, probably I guess the return side of the coil was way past 16 kV or near 16. Right now I'm at 8 or 9 on my firing line, and my spark line's nice and clean. If I go to the companion cylinder to this one, I think I'm on number 3. So if I go to number 2, of course it's the same thing. I have to adjust my scale here so we can read it the other way. Bring my cursor up. And you'll see it's the same thing. 8 or 9, 10 kV on the firing line, so it's pretty equal. So my high kV on the 2 cylinders before, high resistance stuff like I said before. So now it's not missing. See, it's both the same. Number 1 and 4 are the same. I won't bore you with it. So I guess we can call this one diagnosed and repaired on 2 fronts. I appreciate you watching. See you next time.